You didn't quit. Even when it would have been easier, he kept showing up. With less energy, less certainty, less margin, but you're still here. He didn't stop believing. You didn't walk away. He didn't disappear. And that matters. Some seasons don't make noise. They don't collapse loudly. They don't come with dramatic endings. They just get heavy. Heavy in ways no one sees. Heavy in ways you don't always know how to explain. You wake up. You do what needs to be done. You carry what must be carried. And you move on. Not because it's easy, but because someone has to. There are expectations on you. Responsibilities that don't pause. People who rely on your consistency. And so you stay steady. Even when your inner world feels tired, not broken. Just warn. You've learned how to keep your voice calm. How to keep your face composed. How to keep going without making a scene. And most people never notice the cost. But God does. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from weakness. It comes from endurance. From staying longer than you wanted to. From holding on when release would have felt easier. From choosing faith when emotions went quiet. This kind of tiredness has weight. And Scripture speaks directly to it. Psalms 73-26 says, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart." Not when you collapsed, but when you continue. Not when you give up, but when you keep standing. This verse doesn't deny fatigue. It names it. Your flesh may fail. Your heart may feel stretched thin, but God remains strength. Not borrowed strength. Not temporary strength. Sustaining strength. The kind that holds you upright when everything inside would prefer to sit down. You've been carrying things you didn't choose. Timelines you didn't control. Pressures you didn't announce. And you didn't complain loudly about it. You adapted. You adjusted. You absorbed the weight. Listen. That matters more than you think. God is not impressed by noise. He is attentive to faithfulness. Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you." Notice the word sustain. Not rush you out. Not instantly remove the load. Sustain you. Meaning it keeps you steady while you carry what cannot yet be set down. That kind of help doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels quiet. Like waking up with just enough strength. Like finding patience you didn't think you had left. Like not quitting again. And that's not accidental. That's God working underneath your endurance. You may wonder why it still feels heavy. Why this season hasn't shifted yet. But heaviness does not mean absence. Often it means responsibility. And God does not ignore responsibility. Psalm 121:3 says, "He will not let your foot slip." Not that the ground won't feel uneven, but that you won't fall. Not that the road won't demand effort, but that you'll remain upright. You've stayed upright. Not because you're unbothered, but because grace has been holding you together. You've carried disappointment without becoming bitter. You've carried uncertainty without abandoning faith. You've carried pressure without collapsing inward. That is not small. That is not invisible. God knows what you're carrying, and He knows how long you've been carrying it. Jesus spoke directly to people like you. In Matthew 11:28, He said, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Notice who He invites. Not the ones who dropped everything, not the ones who ran away, but the ones who labored, the ones who carried, the ones who stayed. Rest here is not escape. It's relief within responsibility. It's the kind of rest that reaches your soul, even while your hands remain full. Jesus doesn't shame your tiredness. He understands it. He doesn't question why it's heavy. He knows the weight. And He doesn't minimize what you've endured. You didn't imagine this season being this demanding. You didn't plan for the emotional cost, but you adapted anyway. That's maturity. Isaiah 40:31 says, "Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength." Waiting is not inactivity. Waiting is remaining faithful without immediate resolution. Waiting is continuing forward without clarity. There are moments when the weight you carry doesn't come from pain, but from consistency, from doing the right thing again and again and again. No applause, no recognition, just responsibility. You've learned how to function while tired, how to stay dependable when you'd rather rest, how to keep your word even when it costs you internally. That kind of faith is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention, but it holds everything together. Psalm 37:24 says, "Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with His hand." Notice that it doesn't say you won't stumble. It says you won't fall. Stumbling looks like slowing down, like needing pauses, like feeling the weight more than you used to. But falling would mean giving up. And you didn't do that. You adjusted your pace. You conserved strength. You stayed. That is not failure. That is wisdom. Some seasons require loud faith. Others require steady faith. This one asked you to remain, to keep showing up with integrity, to keep choosing patience, to keep carrying what others may never notice, and God honors that kind of faith. Not because it looks impressive, but because it lasts. You don't need to rush this season away. You don't need to force clarity. You only need to remain anchored. God is not measuring you by speed. He is sustaining you by faithfulness. And every quiet step you've taken has been seen. Nothing has been wasted. And strength is renewed, not by speed, but by reliance. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are carrying. And God knows what you're carrying. He sees the unseen effort, the quiet decisions, the self-control. He sees the prayers you didn't have words for, the nights you went to bed tired and still chose hope. Proverbs 4:23 says, Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it, and you've guarded your heart. Even when disappointment tried to harden it, even when pressure tried to rush it, you chose steadiness over reaction. That is wisdom. This season is not about breaking you. It's about strengthening what remains when noise fades. You are learning what can carry weight, what can last. And God is shaping endurance into you, not the kind that shouts, the kind that lasts. Listen carefully. You did not miss God's favor, because this feels heavy. You did not step outside His will, because you're tired. You did not fail, because you need rest. You are still standing, and that matters. Psalm 66:10 says, "For you, O God, have tested us. You have refined us like silver." Refining is not punishment. It is preparation. Silver is not destroyed by heat. It is purified by it. And you are not being destroyed. You are being clarified. What you carry now will not always weigh this much, but what it produces in you will remain. Strength, discernment, depth. God knows what you're carrying, and He is not distant from it. He is sustaining you through it. So, take a breath. Not because everything is solved, but because you are not alone. You don't need to explain yourself to God. He already understands. You don't need to justify your tiredness. He already sees it. And you don't need to prove your faith. Your endurance already has. If this message spoke to you, like the video, share it with someone who's carrying quietly, and subscribe for more devotionals like this. And if you feel led, leave a comment saying, "I'm still standing." May His peace find you today.